Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to the latest edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Boy, free agency is in full swing. Starts officially tomorrow. That's when the ink can hit the contracts, but deals are getting done. And I got Matt Matera. I'm Scott Reynolds, by the way. I've got Matt Matera here from Pewter Report to talk about today's happenings. We had Ryan Jetson press conference earlier today, him talking about wanting to retire as a Buccaneer. But really within the last hour or so, the Buccaneers have added a new weapon for Tom Brady, and that would be Russell Gage from the Atlanta Falcons signing a division rival to fill that number 3 wide receiver position. So joining me today again is Matt Matera. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. As you just mentioned, the news has really been popping off for the Bucs the last hour and a half with Russell Gage, and then unfortunately Jordan Whitehead leaving to go to the New York Jets. Sorry, yep. Bucs fans, I had nothing to do with it. But obviously that's big news for the Bucs. There's still a couple of free agents out there, the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and Marcus May. So we'll see if the Bucs are going to pursue one of those players. But Marcus also the contract numbers are just starting to come in for Jordan Whitehead signing with the Jets, and I think that's really surprising too. He got 2 years, $14.5 million overall, so that's comes out to $7.25 million per year. Seemed like a number that the Bucs would really be interested in, but nonetheless, he's moving to New York or New Jersey.
Yeah, and the thing is from what I've been told, and of course the Buccaneers brought everybody back last year for the Super Bowl repeat run that fell short. But what I was told is that they're just not going to make that type of commitment this year. It's not that they don't want to win a Super Bowl. Certainly with Tom Brady back, they're interested in it very much. They went from repeat to maybe rebuild to crap, Tom's back. All right, reload, and that's the right approach. But we were told that they're not going to be able to bring everybody back. And the reason for that is you've got a Devin White contract on the horizon, Tristan Wirfs contract on the horizon. You've got some guys coming up here that are going to need to be taken care of long term. We just saw the Vita Vea contract extension, right? So I don't mind. I mean, I like Whitehead as a player, right? And I think that's that's going to sting a little bit for sure. They do have Mike Edwards. It's not like the cupboard is bare. I think they want to find out what they have in Edwards because he is entering his contract year. Same with Sean Murphy-Bunting. Same with Jamel Dean. So the Buccaneers would like to see what these guys can do. And I'm not saying that they're not going to add another safety. They will, and it might be Marcus May. That's a guy that you mentioned in your battle plan, I believe, right, Matt?
That's right. Yeah, I had him coming back because, again, in my battle plan, and obviously so much changed with Tom Brady, but my main premise was that I thought Jordan Whitehead was going to get overpaid, which wasn't necessarily the case in this situation with him going to the Jets. But again, my thinking was if Whitehead is out the door, Marcus May is coming in or believed to be coming in on a 1-year prove-it deal because he's coming off a very serious Achilles injury. Obviously, we saw what happened with O.J. Howard and how he wasn't really able to bounce all the way back to the O.J. Howard that we've known of. Obviously, every single case is different, but I always thought Marcus May, again, for 1 year, let's see what he can do. And if he outperforms his contract, that's great for him. If he goes subpar, oh, well, it's only 1 year. It's he's not on the books for a very long time. So that's really the main reason why I had him etched into my Bucs battle plan. But yeah, the Whitehead not getting, again, they can't re-sign everyone, especially giving Carlton Davis a big contract as well, too. Probably played into that a little bit. Granted, it's the secondary, but a different position.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, overall, obviously, changes are coming to the Bucs back at safety.
Yeah, I think too when you look at some of these again, the Buccaneers lost Alex Kappa, right? They couldn't bring everybody back. It was either Ryan Jensen or Alex Kappa, and I thought what I heard was it was going to be Carlton Davis or Jordan Whitehead. Now, again, the contract is very different, right? I mean, Carlton Davis is a top cover corner for the Buccaneers and probably the number 2, maybe 3 cornerback on the market. And so you're looking at, around $15 million per season for Carlton Davis and far less for Jordan Whitehead. But you add them both together and it just takes up a lot of cap space. And it's the same thing with Kappa and with Jensen, right? It just, you couldn't bring back Kappa at, around 8.5 and Jensen at 13. It's
Mhm.
just too much money kind of gobbled up in those positions. And, they still have to fill a couple other holes. That there's some more holes on this roster that we'll get to in just a little bit, in terms of where things stand right now. But
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Scott, I think too, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think too, just when you look at last year's offseason, the Bucks were probably as close to perfect as they possibly could have been with being
Right.
able to re-sign everyone, that you almost become accustomed to, like, okay, well, yeah, why wouldn't every single player want to be back, and why couldn't they find a deal for literally every single person?
Right.
But as great as the Bucks front office was last year, that's so tough to do it again. So I think Bucks fans have to understand that a little bit, that it's so tough to be, 100 out of 100 every
Yeah.
single time, which is why you see Kappa and you see Whitehead move. And that doesn't mean that the Bucks won't be able to replace these guys. I mean, we just saw what they did with Russell Gage, and
Yeah.
we've already been pretty optimistic about that move. So
Right.
fear not. Some players are out the door, but there's going to
Yeah.
be others coming in that can also be a great fit for this team.
That's right. You have to have a mix of guys on their first contracts if you're going to
Yeah.
extend a bunch of players too. That's how it is. And there's people out there that think the salary cap is a myth. It's not a myth. It's real. But I mean, it can be manipulated. And Mike Greenberg is one of the absolute best at doing so. He and Jason Light, Jackie Davidson, they work together very well to create this cap space. But at some point in time, you can only push money forward so far, right? And we even saw the
Yeah.
Saints last year. The Saints didn't win the division, didn't make the playoffs, and they had ruled the NFC South for years. And the reason why they didn't, part of that was, Drew Brees retired, but they had to let Trey Hendrickson go, and like a lot of their players that had produced for them, they literally had to watch those guys go out the door, trade some of those players away to create cap space. And so at some point in time, you have to pay the piper. And
Mhm.
if you push too much money too forward down the road, there will be a reckoning, right? I mean, I saw that coming in the early 2000s after the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, right? I mean, Rich McKay started doing all these extensions. He extended Simeon Rice and Keyshawn Johnson and Martin Gramatica and all these extensions. And at some point in time, you run out of cap space, and you have to then cut some players. And we saw John Lynch go out the door and Warren Sapp go out the door, and those kind of moves hurt. Mike Allstott had to retire, so it's a thing where you can massage the cap, you can manipulate it, you can create room, but it's not a myth, right? I mean, every team
Yeah.
at Wednesday at 4:00, they've got to be in cap compliance, and that's why you're seeing some of these moves now, with some of these teams jettisoning some good players, having to trade some, having to release some to get under the cap.
Now, I agree with you, and I'm with you for the most part. But we were talking about this a little bit on the podcast yesterday, too, where, sure, like, you don't really want to damage yourself down the road, but because Tom Brady's back and there's no guarantees, like, it's this year and we're looking at this
Whoa,
year.
we've got some breaking news here. Hold on.
Oh,
Aaron
boy.
Wilson, who's a very credible NFL insider, says Shaq Mason, the guard for New England, is being traded to the Buccaneers.
Whoa.
Wow.
All right, breaking news on the
Wow.
podcast. Let's go.
It's phenomenal.
Guard problem solved.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah.
I still really like Aaron Stinney, but guard problems
Yeah.
solved.
Well, the thing is with I mean, really, Stinney could still start, but then you've got Shaq
he can start
Mason
on the
as well.
other side.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great right guard right there. I mean, that's a fantastic move. I remember liking Shaq Mason when he came out of Georgia Tech way back in the day. And I've really, liked watching him with the Patriots, and that's just a fantastic move right there. If you remember, Jason Light went back and grabbed Logan Mankins from the Patriots.
I was thinking of that. Jason Light, he has that New England connection, obviously.
He does,
having used to work there back in the day, and still keeps very strong ties. Wow, this just changed a lot of the podcast already, and we had so
really
many things
does,
moving. But now that offensive line is the core is still pretty much intact. You bring in a player of this caliber to the Bucs now.
Yeah. Well, again, the Buccaneers within the past 24 hours, 36 hours now, we're looking at, I guess, they've gone from reboot to reload really quick.
Back on.
Exactly. So that's some major news just breaking right there. Again, Shaq Mason, that's a heck of a pickup right there. for the Buccaneers. So let's get some of these super chats here. We'll get some questions. Leo asks, is Brady extension coming? Evans, Barrett? Yeah, I think that we're going to see a contract extension for Mike Evans. That's something that I think is coming sooner rather than later.
And Evans has done this in the past before, too. Like, he's always been very open to restructuring his contract to open up more cap space. So you could pretty much put a good bet on that's going to happen.
Yep. And as for Shaq Barrett, yes, I think that they will restructure his deal. Probably, I don't know if they're going to add another year or not on there. I think there's still some space where they can do some massaging. Maybe they'll add a avoidable year on there. As for Brady, I think they've got to do something there with that contract. So I think those moves are coming for sure. Hello, Nathan. We appreciate that. Appreciate everybody joining us here in the chat today. And folks, if you haven't already, and we've seen our numbers jump up here since free agency started, we want you to subscribe to Pewter Report TV on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching this live, or if you're watching the podcast version at your leisure, which is the great thing about going to Pewter Report TV on YouTube, is if you missed the show live, all of our shows are right there. And so we'll have all of the insight that you need. So if you miss an episode, you can catch up there, but hit the like button on our videos too. What that does when you subscribe and hit the like button, it helps the algorithm. It helps Pewter Report's YouTube channel or Pewter Report TV channel get higher into the algorithms for people looking for Buccaneer news. So it helps us attract more Buccaneer fans. So if you like the content, help us continue to build our channel here on YouTube by hitting the subscribe and like buttons. And, I'm going to just kind of venture out here. I don't know that this is a fact, Matt, but I'm going to hazard a guess that right now, the Bucs front office with all these moves is fueled by Celsius. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but I know that I am fueled by Celsius today. Matt, what are you drinking?
I have the Sparkling Grape Rush.
Oh,
fan
love
of
it.
That. Yeah.
Definitely.
So many great flavors, though, really. It's like you can't go wrong with anyone. Probably my personal favorite is just the original orange. I
love it too.
It tastes like orange soda. I haven't seen that with any other energy drink. All their different flavors. Yeah, there you go. The orange right there.
The reason why I have this here, Matt,
please,
is I had this orange this morning. And this is one of those rare days it's free agency. I've also had an orange pomegranate. I am going double barrel today.
Let's go.
Double barrel. And the reason I'm having two, the first one works. Don't act like it didn't, because it does. It gives you that energy that you need without the crash. And the reason why there's no crash is because there's no sugar in it. There's no sugar. There's no preservatives. It's a fantastic, healthy energy drink for you. It's got vitamins in it, and it helps the fat burning process. But the reason why I had two is because it's free agency, Matt. This is my morning. This is going to keep me going all the way through the afternoon. This is my evening one. I've already had it, so I'm good to go from the evening. I'm not going to bed till like midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning now.
Well, the Bucs will probably make another. The Bucs will probably make another deal or a signing at midnight anyway. So it's exactly good to be up. But
no doubt about it.
You're charged and ready to go. That's I mean, that's the only way to do it, to get through free agency and stay up to date on every single one. One is by having a Celsius, but two is also looking at our Bucs. Well, not even the Bucs, the entire NFL Pewter Report's 2022 free agency tracker. That way you can see every single deal that's going on, whether it's the Bucs, whether you're a fan of another team, but you want to know about the Bucs and you're watching this podcast, you can see every move that's made in the NFL. So make sure you go and see our NFL free agency tracker.
Yep. And make sure you get some Celsius. You can do that by clicking on the banner ads on pewterreport.com while you're reading that free agency tracker. And you can also go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator. If you know the flavors you want, man, just buy them on Amazon, because then you save money. I did that. I've got a shipment of cola coming in and some tropical vibe. I save money with the subscribe and save. It ships it right to my house. So fantastic offer there from Celsius to do the subscribe and save. So a lot of news to talk about. We are going to talk about Russell Gage kind of in depth here in just a few minutes, but let's take a look at some of the holes in where the Buccaneers roster stands right now. Now, this is again kind of some breaking news here with Shaq Mason, so this has not been updated. But looking at the Bucs offense as it stands right now, Tom Brady is back. That's your quarterback right there, Buccaneer fans. And then Keyshawn Vaughn right now slated in at the running back spot. Now, there's a chance maybe Leonard Fournette wants to come back and make another run at this thing. And if he does, I think it would be cheap, Matt. But right now, that's kind of the placeholder in there, Keyshawn Vaughn. I think the Bucs are going to draft a running back or two as well. But now you look at that wide receiver core. This team needs 4 really solid wide receivers, Matt, because as you remember, in the playoffs, Antonio Brown was gone. Chris Godwin was hurt. It was Mike Evans and nobody else. Now
not even Surreal Grayson Jr. Not even
right.
Surreal Grayson Jr. was possible. And he was a guy that maybe you don't want to call it a breakout, but he was absolutely a player that was standing out towards the end of the season. I think, Scott, you could also go all the way back to the 2019 season when obviously the Bucs started out pretty rough, but then they started going on a little bit of a run. There was whispers of maybe they can get a wild card, but then Mike Evans had a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin had a hamstring injury. Scotty Miller got injured as well, too. So depth obviously is so important at every position, but really for the Bucs and this current iteration of the Bucs, it's even more important at wide receiver. So even after the Gage news, which I'm very happy about for the Bucs, I still always thought, yeah, sure. Well, now after this trade, Zion Johnson was the big number one target for the fifth round pick.
Fifth round pick. For Shaq Mason. That's
and I never thought that's a superb move. That's an excellent move by Jason Light and company there. And I even before that, I never really thought that getting a receiver in an early round was off the board for the Bucs. But now again, after this trade for Shaq Mason, plug him in at guard. It's not an absolute immediate need. If they want to still draft Johnson, be like, all right, we'll let him compete for the other guard position. I'm down with that too. But I still see wide receiver very high on the list for the Bucs and still could be a first round pick.
Yep. You need 4. Right now they've got 3. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, who I think is a very solid addition. I think that when you look at what Russell Gage is going to bring to the Buccaneers, he's a guy that really works the short routes, the intermediate routes. He's a chain mover, right? He's the type of player that has reliable hands that will catch the ball underneath, and he'll also do some things at the intermediate level. When you look at his statistics, right, Russell Gage, he hasn't had an 800-yard season yet. He's come very close. He's had 786 yards on 72 catches in 2020. Then he had 66 catches for 770 yards. Both of those seasons, the last 2 seasons, he's had 4 touchdowns, Matt. So he's kind of a steady Eddie. He is a more of a possession guy. He does have 4.4 speed, but we really haven't seen it at the NFL level. He has 3 catches of 30 yards or more out of 193 catches. Now, the Falcons have asked him to do a lot of those short and underneath routes. And let's face it, that's something that he excels at. That's valuable. If you look at the type of production that Antonio Brown had in his last 100-yard game for the Buccaneers at Carolina, it was very much that same type of thing. I think he averaged 10 or 11 yards per catch in that game, and that's what you're looking for as that Z receiver. But you also want a guy that can get more vertical, because Antonio Brown did make some more vertical plays at that Z receiver position in Tampa Bay. When I'm talking about that, that's the flanker position with Mike Evans playing the X or the split end. You've got Chris Godwin in the slot. But at 6 foot 184, Gage has got the ability to also go in and maybe fill in a little bit in the slot too and play some slot in, where it gives Byron Leftwich the ability to kind of mix and match who's outside and who's in the slot, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. I think Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians and the whole offense, they can get so creative with moving Gage around. I mean, as soon as the trade went down, I immediately started watching as much, Russell Gage tape as I possibly could, most notably his highlights from the 2021 season. And one of the first things that stuck out to me is the third down catches. Half of his highlights, Scott, were him making the big catch on third down, which I think is so important for every team. But I think if you look at the Bucs offense, especially in the playoffs, Tyler Johnson, I don't really want to knock him down too much, but he wasn't making those grimy third down catches that you want to see. Russell Gage was making those. You talk about creativity. Yeah, he didn't have too many big plays down the field, but watch his game against the San Francisco 49ers. He had a great touchdown catch in the end zone where he leaped up. He essentially almost caught it off the back of the defender, so he can make some of those tough catches. And Atlanta, they still used him in very different ways as well, too. They were throwing screen passes to him. He was being able to break tackles and move up the field, which I think is very important, the Bucs, especially with Tom Brady. like to implement that screen game. A lot of that went to Chris Godwin. And of course, that changed when Godwin was out. And we don't know if he'll be ready for the beginning of the regular season. So I really enjoy seeing all of that there with Russell Gage. So I think he could be a pretty important fit to this team. And just the different ways that they can use him. I think it's a great addition.
It's a really solid addition. I think what you said is spot on. They're looking for somebody more reliable than Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson. And both of those guys have had the opportunity to get open, catch the ball, move the chains. And they really haven't done that. That's what Russell Gage specializes in. And we'll see in this offense if he has the ability to play a little bit more vertically than he was asked to do in Atlanta. He's getting paid $10 million a season. That's a little rich. I would have liked it around 8, but we'll see. I think it's a solid move. And again, this team needs 4 solid, if not spectacular, wide receivers. This is a wide receiver driven offense. And this is number 3. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Now you have Russell Gage. You need a 4th, and I think they're going to draft one, maybe even early, because again, Matt, as you pointed out, in 2019 and last year, this team that is wide receiver driven has been down to Brashard Perryman in 2019 and Mike Evans last year.
And kind of Brashard Perryman again.
Yeah, that's right. But he didn't do anything outside of the Bills game.
Well, he had the overtime touchdown against the Bills, obviously. And that helped his stock so much because people were still all in on Brashard Perryman. And I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that play was great. But like, if you look at everything else besides that, I didn't really see too much from Brashard Perryman. One last thing I want to say about Russell Gage.
Sure.
Football savviness. I think the football smarts, what I was talking about before about, making the big 3rd down play. A lot of those too, watching the video, it would be, he'd be 3 or 4 yards short of the marker. And then he was able to break a tackle, dive, get that football to the yard marker and everything like that. I think that gets overlooked at times, just his ability to know the field, know what's going on. And then also one of his best games last season came against the Bucs. He had 11 receptions for 130 yards. Arguably his best game. He had his last game of the season as well. I believe he had 9 receptions for over 120 yards. And he scored a touchdown. So if you want to argue that he got a touchdown, that could be his best game. But either way, was great down the stretch and obviously can do some great things here for the Bucs.
I think he's an ascending player. He's 26 years old, played at LSU, didn't really do much at LSU. That's why he was a 6th-round pick. It was really a special teams gunner. But this is kind of a self-made guy, a player that comes into the league, didn't really do much in college to warrant anything outside of being a late day 3 pick, and earned his keep and not just stuck on the roster, but really became that number 3 wide receiver in Atlanta. Right, you had Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and then Julio departs, and Calvin Ridley's kind of the guy, and then really last year down the stretch, I mean, Russell Gage had to kind of take over when Ridley wasn't there. So the Falcons offense didn't have much to work with outside of Kyle Pitts last year, especially when Ridley was gone. But Russell Gage filled in admirably and did a pretty credible job. As you mentioned, 11 catches at 12 targets, 130 yards against the Buccaneers. Again, not an overwhelming average. A lot of it was underneath, but still 11.8 yards per catch. But against Tampa Bay, he has a career total of 48 catches, 484 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 8 games. So, again, quality pickup for the Buccaneers. I think this is a really, really good move. Appreciate the super chats today. Ted Curtis, love Whitehead, but I'm not opposed to shaking up the defense. Would like to see some new blood, energy, and trenches in the secondary. So I think we're going to see what transpires at the safety position. They're not going to stand pat because, again, Mike Edwards is in a contract year. They're going to have to address the position maybe in free agency or in the draft, Matt.
Yeah, I really do think so. And yeah, I think we almost kind of forgot that Mike Edwards is there too. I think I tend to be more optimistic about players in general, whether it's like Aaron Stinney getting an opportunity. I tweeted about that obviously before the Shaq Mason news. And again, Stinney could still be a starter depending on what they do in the draft. But Mike Edwards too. I mean, all he's done is make splash plays when he's out there. And it seems like the Bucs haven't necessarily always trusted him to be a full-time starter. Sometimes he had to be in there just based on, whether players were injured or suspended. So Edwards still got a lot of playing time. But at the end of the day, he's a player. He had the 2 pick-6 game against the Atlanta Falcons. So obviously Russell Gage is well aware of that.
Right.
He's their number one ball hawk, if you want to say. He had the interception in the playoffs against the Eagles. Why not at least give this guy an opportunity to earn that role in training camp and then see what happens, to start the season? I'm all for it if Edwards wants to be the starter. And if you want to get Tyrann Mathieu, I'm down with that too, because
that's right.
At the end of the day, you have one more year with Tom Brady. You have to go all in. And if you don't exhaust all efforts to get the best possible team that you can, then shame on you. But I still think the Bucs are still in a very good position. Like, they're not going to not win the division because Jordan Whitehead isn't here.
Yeah. And the thing too is with Edwards, now granted, to be fair, and you and I like Mike Edwards. I think he is a dynamic playmaker as well, right? You remember the forced fumble at Indy, which was big, the interceptions against the Falcons in week 2.
The game-saving tackle in Indy too on special teams.
That's right. But he had a really horrible game against the Rams. He only played 16 plays, I think, at a game, and it was really probably his worst. Well, it was his worst of the year. But certainly, I think there's more good than bad there with Mike Edwards. And I think that their confidence in Edwards, and again, they're probably going to make a move here, either for another safety in free agency or or going to the draft and getting another safety. There's some pretty good ones in this draft. And I wouldn't be surprised either if you look at Jason Light's track record of where he's drafted safeties, right? Justin Evans, 2nd-round pick. Antoine Winfield, 2nd-round pick. Mike Edwards, 3rd-round pick. That's kind of been the sweet spot for safeties in Tampa Bay is on day 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go early. There's some guys, the Penn State kid Brisker, Lewis Sine from Georgia. I mean, there's some interesting players there. And it's also interesting to see how some of these holes are getting filled out. Let's finish up here on the offensive side real quick.
Yeah.
Looking at the current holes, and again, not updated because while we're on the air here live on Tuesday, Buccaneers trade a 5th-round pick to the Patriots for guard Shaq Mason. So Mason right now is going to be penciled in there at guard. And I think whether it's Aaron Stinney or Nick Leverett, we'll see if one of those players can emerge as one of the guards. Cam Brate right now, the placeholder. I think the next domino to fall might be Rob Gronkowski. I think that it's probably better than 50-50 that Gronkowski comes back for this year. That's what the Bucs are counting on. But with Brady and with Ryan Jensen back and Russell Gage's addition, you can see there's just not many holes here on this offense now. And again, with Shaq Mason, that's one of those guards that's just gone. So now you're looking at one guard position, tight end. And if Gronk comes back, that's a solid 1-2 punch with Gronk and Brate, who still, I think, will take a pay cut. And then Keyshawn Vaughn, they're going to add somebody either in free agency or the draft or both at running back, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if we're assuming, and you never want to assume, but Gronk has been showing his face like all over Tampa, whether he's at concerts or at Lightning games, and sure, like he could still make a decision to go somewhere else, but
he hadn't yet.
Gronk is a huge public figure at this point, and he's working out at the team facility, and I think that says a lot. But he knows the figure that he is. Like, if he's going to stick his face out in Tampa all the time, he knows he's going to get bombarded a billion times. Like, oh, are you coming back? Is Tom coming back? So if Gronk is there, as your starting tight end, then really, I think the only, in terms of starters, you obviously still have to build depth a little bit. But in terms of starters, you're really just looking at the running back position of a clear need of, okay, we need to upgrade this, or at least get in another starter there, or someone that can compete for the starting competition. I kind of still feel like, even though he will be the 3rd down guy, not really compete as a starter, but like Giovanni Bernard, I'm all for, sign me up to have him back, be the 3rd down back, just be a stable guy that can help with all these younger running backs. And Keyshawn Vaughn is still a very young running back. And then through the draft too, obviously Rachaad White is a guy that you've written about, that I've written about a little bit. Pierce from Florida, he's a big Kyle Trask guy. I spoke to him at the Senior Bowl, and he had all great things to say about Kyle Trask, who will no longer be the starting quarterback for the Bucs anyway. But there's a lot of great options there for the Bucs at running back. To
get Cordell Patterson from the Falcons. While you're there in Atlanta, and you picked up Russell Gage, right? Swing by Cordell Patterson's house, if I can say it right, and pick this guy up too. He won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady back in the Patriots several years ago, and was a big-time weapon for the Falcons last year as a runner and also as a receiver. That's how he entered the league, as a wide receiver and a kick returner. But boy, this guy could help the Buccaneers kick return game. He could be a running back by committee guy. He's got size at 6'2", 220. And boy, what you could do with him in the screen game, right, the perimeter screen game, wheel routes out of the backfield, getting him on linebackers down the field. I mean, I'm not saying he's David Johnson, but how Bruce Arians used David Johnson in Arizona when he was young and in his prime, that kind of speaks to me how Cordero Patterson could be used in Tampa Bay. I don't know if they can afford him. We'll see what his market value is. He is 31, but he would love to have a chance to win another ring with Tom Brady. And of course, the Buccaneers, I think that'd be a huge get to steal him from a division opponent. Patterson has wanted to remain in Atlanta, but we'll see, right? With Tom Brady back, maybe he changes his mind.
Well, yes, Scott, and that's one of the many, 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 many benefits of having Tom Brady, besides the fact that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And you heard Ryan Jensen say this today during his press conference. Tom Brady is the ultimate recruiter.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone that could get a guy in that maybe it will take a little bit less than what his expected contract could be, it would be Tom Brady to get a player such as Cordero Patterson. And once you get him in the building, it matters what your skill set is. But as long as you have some type of skill, Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich, and Tom Brady will put you in the best position possible to make you succeed. Whether that was Scotty Miller in the playoffs 2 seasons ago, or obviously just the fantastic careers that anyone that's played with Tom Brady's had, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, rejuvenating Gronk last year. Just get the man in the building.
Get him in the building.
Get him in the building.
Yes.
And I said this in a text earlier that, if this wasn't bad enough that Tom Brady came back against the Falcons, beat them 28-3, did that to Matt Ryan. Then he goes to the division in Matt Ryan's division and wins the Super Bowl and wins the division last year. Now he's going to take all of Matt Ryan's players and win the Super Bowl again in front of his
with
face.
Matt Ryan's players.
That would be with Matt Ryan's players. So it's can't make it up.
Am I over? This is from Mark Fisher. Appreciate you, Mark. Am I over the depression of Gabbert being benched? Well, see, here's the thing. That's the tag team right there. Okay. It's just been delayed a year. That's all. Okay. Blaine Gabbert. All right. I think Blaine's coming back as the number 2 quarterback this year, the familiar role, right? Let's keep in mind, Buccaneers undefeated when Blaine Gabbert plays in a game, whether it's a handoff in the 4th quarter, whether it's the victory position, kneel down, whatever it is. I'm just saying Blaine, a bit of a lucky charm
He's a winner
for this team. Yeah. So the Buccaneers have won 2 Super Bowls. All right. One of them has had Blaine Gabbert on the team. I'm just saying. Okay. So yeah, I'm not depressed about it. I love the fact that Tom Brady's coming back. Don't get me wrong. I mean, let's, my love for Blaine Gabbert is tongue in cheek, but I do think that, listen, if you want to delay the tag team and keep Brady in the ring for another year, I am all for it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And obviously, Blaine Gabbert, no one knows the offense better than him. He was, instrumental in helping Tom Brady learn the offense when he first got in here. So I still think we'll see if the numbers add up, but I could totally still see Gabbert coming back. And who knows, maybe we can even get more playing time this year because the Bucs have a pretty tough schedule, so there probably won't be too many blowouts this year. But, there's always that opportunity that the Bucs are winning big, especially against their own division. And Blaine Gabbert gets a couple kneel downs, a couple passing attempts. So, Blaine train, just, the train is a little delayed.
That's right.
Get the train next year.
Yeah.
Happens all the time in New York.
Still on
City.
the train.
Yeah.
It just, train's a little delayed. That's all. No worries.
That's fine.
Yeah. So just to give you some idea about Shaq Mason here. Mason was Pro Football Focus's number 4 offensive guard this past season. Now, Pro Football Focus is not the end all be all when it comes to grades. It's one of those places, Matt, where the Pewter Report group chat, if we like a guy, right, we throw the PFF stats out there. If we like a guy and they don't like him, then we say, PFF, what do they know, right? So it's a good resource though. But listen, I've liked Shaq Mason since he was at Georgia Tech. He's a phenomenal player. He was Pro Football Focus's number 4 offensive guard this past season. He's been their number 2 guard since 2016. He's 29 years old, a very small, undersized guy, 6'1", 300 pounds. but he is an absolute stud that can get out and move and really effective in the screen game. Brandon Thorne, who is a friend to Pewter Report,
Yep.
and someone that we both respect tremendously. Everybody
Very
on the
highly.
report staff does. This guy is the offensive line guru of the internet. He's on a must follow on Twitter. Brandon Thorne says that Shaq Mason is a top 5 right guard in the NFL. And Brandon Thorne has been absolutely spot on when it comes to knowing the Buccaneers offensive lineman. He has had Ali Marpet rated as a Pro Bowler for the past 3 or 4 seasons, which is accurate, even though Marpet only had 1. He has said Ryan Jensen is the top center in the league for several years now. He was all in on Tristan Wirfs during his rookie season and this season too. So when Brandon Thorne says Shaq Mason's the top 5 right guard in the NFL, I believe it. And I certainly believe the film. He's missed 8 games over the past 4 to 5 years, never more than 3 in a season. So, I think that's pretty good, right? I mean, we saw Tristan Wirfs miss a game. Ali Marpet's missed some games with concussions. So he's still pretty reliable. And I think that the fact that the Buccaneers, when you look at the right guard position, Matt, it's a situation where Shaq Mason's an upgrade over Alex Kappa.
Oh yeah, I mean 100% without question. It's funny, like we would joke at times about the Bucs rebuilding. They don't like using that word. They're reloading. That's a damn reload right there with getting Shaq Mason. So yeah, an absolute upgrade on the offensive line. As you said, like if he moves well, some of my favorite plays over the last 2 years for the Bucs was the Leonard Fournette touchdown. They're both Leonard Fournette touchdown runs.
That's right.
The first was in the Super Bowl, and then the other one was to close out the game against the Colts.
Yep.
The similarities in those 2 plays is that you had a pulling guard on the play that pretty much led Leonard Fournette to the expressway. So I would love to see Shaq Mason in that type of role. And, everything you just said about, one of the top guys in the league, Brandon Thorne, obviously is on top of everyone and everything when it comes to the offensive line. I mean, this is a home run slam dunk, whatever you want to call it. And to happen live on the podcast, I'm just so excited about that. And a quick sidebar, every time we talk about Tristan Wirfs in the draft, I can't help but smirk and think that he was the 4th tackle taken off.
I know.
And he went to the Bucs.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, Matt, right?
Yeah, St. Patty's Day right around the corner.
No kidding. And so Shaq, we had a question about Shaq Mason's cap hit from Michael Henderson. Appreciate you. That's a good question. And what we're looking at is overthecap.com. Mason at age 29 for his 2022 season has a base salary of $6.5 million. He's got $1 million worth of bonus money and per game roster bonus money. So when he does play in the game, he can earn up to $1 million, but it's a situation where he's got to be on the field. So it's nice to do that. So he's definitely cheaper than Alex Kappa, right? And he's better and cheaper at the right guard position. Now you just got to fill the left guard.
What are the Patriots doing?
Well, I know that he had 2 years left on his deal, right? That's the thing. He had 2 years left on his deal, and when you look at the Patriots, sometimes they like to punt on a player.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Help manage their cap. They'd rather trade, but the thing is, it's a 5th rounder.
I know, it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It costs more to get Gronk, and Gronk was retired for a whole year.
Yeah, but I mean, Jason Light has fleeced the Giants out of a 3rd round pick for Jason Pierre-Paul in his prime, right? I mean, JPP had a 12.5 sack season his first year in Tampa, made the Pro Bowl in the 2020
first
season.
Player on over a decade to get double-digit sacks. Yeah, at the time when JP, man.
So it's kind of astonishing some of these moves that the Buccaneers are making, and boy, they're good. I mean, these are good moves. So we appreciate the super chats that we've had in. If we haven't answered those questions, we've at least kind of put them up there and tried to touch on those. But listen, when it comes to the super chats, we really appreciate all the support from you Buccaneer fans. You're absolutely awesome. And we also, we get from time to time people in the chat. We also get emails. Hey, you guys used to have a magazine I could subscribe to, and I want to support you guys. I don't really have a YouTube account. Can Can I support you in another way rather than doing the super chats? The answer is yes. If you like our free agency coverage, if you like our columns, if you like the Pewter Report podcast, if you like our content on social media and on the website, you can donate to Pewter Report and help your favorite Bucs website. That's us, right? You can go to pewterreport.com/donation, and you can do a one-time donation for as little as $10. We've had donations this year already, some of which were several $100s, and we greatly appreciate all the support from our readers, listeners, and viewers. And you can also become a monthly donor for as little as $3. We have three options: $3, $5, and $9 per month. So if you want to support Pewter Report, be a great time to do it. What we do is we take that money and we put it into our travel budget, right? We're going to send John Ledyard down to the NFL owners meeting in a short time. You and John went to the NFL scouting combine in Indianapolis.
We did.
We took a trip to the Senior Bowl. So it goes into new equipment. It goes into new technology for pewterreport.com. It goes into our travel budget. So really what you're doing with these donations is you're supporting your favorite websites. We can do the best we can to give you the Bucs information, news, inside scoop, and entertainment that you want. So it's really all going back to you. We appreciate all the support we get from those super chats and also from going to pewterreport.com/donation.
Yeah, thanks to all of our fans out there. I love you guys. I love running into fans when I'm out and it's like, oh, I listen to the podcast and stuff like that. It's so much fun interacting with you guys about your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So anything you can do to support us, we really appreciate. And yeah, it's a blast covering this team. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Well, speaking of money too, we would be remiss if we didn't tell you where you can invest some of that money that you don't give us in terms of donations or super chats. But if you're looking to do anything from saving for your kids' college fund, if you're looking to bolster your retirement accounts, if you're just looking for some good, sound financial advice, folks, there's one place to turn, and that's our friends at Amuni Financial.
At Amuni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude,
congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Amuni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Matt, we got to get to Colorado, man.
I know. I've never been. I want to go. I've never been.
Beautiful state. Listen, folks, managing your family's wealth means more to Amuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. This is like the one-stop shop for all of your financial needs. Do what I did. Turn to Amuni Financial. They've got over 40 years of experience here in the Tampa Bay area, and they're going to help you plan ahead so you can stay ahead financially. Give them a call for a risk-free, no obligation conversation where you can determine if the Amuni Financial staff is right for you. But it takes nothing more than a few minutes to place a call, set up an appointment. They can even do some Zoom calls. They're located in St. Petersburg, but they'll be happy to get you on the phone or do a teleconference call to tell you about the ways they can help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Give them a call at 1-800-868-6864. Great people over there at Amuni Financial. Or visit them on the web at amuni.com.
Scott, there's actually something I want to bring it up on the podcast yesterday. Didn't get around to it. And then you were talking about it this morning. And you asked Ryan Jensen about it too. With Jensen back, obviously they don't need an immediate starting center. A guy that was in the running to potentially be the starter if Ryan Jensen wasn't there was Robert Hainsey, their draft pick out of Notre Dame, 1-year player. Yep. Obviously now with Shaq Mason, that changes things too. But I guess I'm asking you, would you like to see at least a competition? Because if Jensen's going to be here for the next 3 years, Hainsey's not going to be the starting center. But would you like to see a competition for him, potentially moving to guard and maybe getting one of those spots? Because, where they drafted him, I think you would eventually like to see Hainsey be either a significant contributor or a a future starter, but obviously Jensen takes that away from him. But what are your thoughts on that with Hainsey?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the Buccaneers can really set up like call it like a training camp battle royale, right? They've got Robert Hainsey, who is a candidate. He was a right tackle at Notre Dame, spent pretty much all of last year learning the center position and either being that heir apparent to Ryan Jensen eventually. And remember, Jensen was free agent up until Sunday
Yep.
when he signed. So it's a situation where now you've got a really solid number 2 guy and maybe an eventual successor to Ryan Jensen in Hainsey, but now you got Aaron Stinnie back. Now you've got Nick Leverett. Those are some players that Ryan Jensen talked about in his conference call today.
He did.
So those are 3 players there that I think if you put those 3 and I think too, I know, John Ledyard, myself, pretty much everybody on the Pewter Report staff, we all love Zion Johnson from Boston College. I just don't think he's going to be there. I think he's clear-cut offensive guard number 1 on the boards. And while guard's not a sexy position and there's a chance that he could slide because he's a guard, the Buccaneers were fortunate to get Davin Joseph at the close to the end of the first round many moons ago. But I don't think that it's going to be a situation where they're going to be able to get Johnson. So that might be a situation that those 3 guys put them in a ring together, see who prevails in training camp, Matt.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I think, may the best man win. It's all about the competition. And we've been lucky to see some very fun competitions in training camp over the last years, with the caveat knowing, all right, this is a winning team. There's not really going to be too many battles. Yeah. This is actually going into this year's training camp. This is a legitimate battle that we can keep our eye on and see for ourselves. And obviously it's up to the coaches, but we can obviously give our feedback and analysis on who we really think has earned it or should win it. I think it's really that. And the the running back position, depending on what they do in free agency and the draft, those are like the really 2 big training camp battles in terms of offense that we're really going to be looking at. And Hainsey, I think it's interesting too, because we didn't see him because he's not a starter, but we didn't really see him too much in training camp because he was hurt for a majority of it. Yeah. And so he didn't even play in many preseason games.
He played in the last one. That was it. Just, I think in the second half of the last preseason game is really the only time he played. So he's a player that they definitely want to keep an eye on. He's got to get bigger. That's something. I'll read you the quote with what Ryan Jensen said.
I didn't want to take too much away because I know you have some things planned written on pewterreport.com.
Hainsey's a very smart guy. He loves football, which is important. This is Ryan Jensen talking about Robert Hainsey. Being smart, loving football, being pretty athletic guy is a huge thing. Last year, his biggest thing was really focusing on learning the game, learning the NFL game, which he learned really quickly, which was very impressive. One of the more impressive rookies I've seen pick up an NFL playbook, figured out right away. Obviously, he's a young guy. He needs to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. You get through your first year, then you have your first NFL offseason. It's a great opportunity for him to get bigger and stronger. To me, everything is there for him. Athleticism, the smarts of the game, everything like that. It's just putting it all together. I feel he can do that. So that's some high praise, I think, coming from Ryan Jensen about Robert Hainsey. He also mentioned, Matt, this is important to note when we're talking about this potential battle royale in training camp for the other guard spot opposite Shaq Mason. He talked about Aaron Stinnie. Stinnie came, this is again Ryan Jensen. Stinnie came in the Super Bowl run, played lights out. There's obviously no doubt that Stinnie can play football. Obviously, we have a couple of young guys on the interior that can play who have a chance to potentially start, like Nick Leverett. So he mentions Leverett by name. Mentions Stinnie by name, and I think those guys, along with possibly Hainsey, if he gets some cross training in guard this offseason, which I expect, that could be the in-house solution. And I wouldn't rule out them drafting a guard either for depth. You always want to keep adding bodies and adding competition. The cream's going to rise to the top, but certainly getting Shaq Mason now, it takes a lot of pressure off because instead of having 2 holes to fill in the guard spot, now you're looking at 1.
It does. And I love that you keep saying battle royale because you and I are both wrestling guys, or at least old school wrestling guys. Yeah. So definitely interested in seeing that. And I think that's why it's so important that Ryan Jensen is back, not just because he's, Tom Brady loves having him as a center and the baby powder and everything. But I love the idea of, Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs. They're going to anchor it down. on both of the tackle positions. And obviously Mason is a very proven player. He's a great player. We're all happy about that. But, this is his first year with the Bucs. And obviously, whether it's Stinney, whether it's Leverett, whoever it is, still a younger guy that hasn't had like a full starting role. I just love the idea of Jensen coming in, taking the younger guy under his wing and just, really being that stalwart, that, the leader of at least the interior offensive line, because he's going to get in people's face. And I think if there's any growing pains just from the mere fact of having new players in starting roles on this offensive line, I think if there's any type of growing pains, Jensen will help ease that transition probably as quicker and easier than really anyone else on this team could possibly do.
Totally agree. I totally agree. The other thing too is when you look at the defensive side, we'll take a quick look there.
Yeah.
At the holes to fill right now. And again, if you're just joining us, we talked about the offensive holes, and I'll move this Celsius graphic right there so we can see. This has not been updated because Shaq Mason was traded for during this podcast.
Just read the ticker tape at the bottom. Fans.
Exactly. So the right guard
they
spot
trade for Shaq Mason
taken care of. Now you've got maybe Aaron Stinney, Nick Leverett, or someone else that they could acquire to be the left guard of this team. But they're doing everything they can to make sure that Tom Brady is well protected. But so the holes there, I think Rob Gronkowski is more likely to return now, and that'll be a nice 1-2 punch with Brates. And so you've got one guard, you need some running backs, and then the offense is pretty much set, right? I think that they'll add another tight end in the draft. It's a very deep draft for tight end. But looking at the defensive side, Matt, getting Carlton Davis back was huge, right? And
absolutely,
I think now there's a chance that Ndamukong Suh, maybe he comes back as well. Right now, your placeholder starters, Rakeem Nunez-Roches. I don't think they're going to go into the season with Nacho as their starter next to Vita Vea, but right now that's kind of where it stands. I think Will Golston is a lock to come back. He'll be the starter at the defensive end spot, which is really like a defensive tackle, and the Bucs play 3-4. Benning Potoahi right now is your placeholder. Jordan Whitehead did depart though, so Mike Edwards is the quote unquote strong safety. They like to rotate those safeties, and both Edwards and Winfield can play either or safety spot. Edwards can also even play in the nickel, but not a lot of holes now, right? They're filling a lot of these holes in free agency, Matt.
Absolutely, Scott. I almost feel like anything can happen, but it's like we're taking a test, but we already have some of the answers to the test. I mean, you go back to the combine when we spoke to Bruce Arians, and he said that Ndamukong Suh already Ndamukong Suh and JPP, and I know we don't really think JPP is going to be back, or at least not for the amount of money he was making last season.
Right.
But Bruce Arians, the point I'm trying to make is Bruce Arians said that Suh and JPP have both let him know that they intend to play football again this season. Now, it's not a guarantee that he's going to sign with the Bucs, but again, you look at Tom Brady's back, you look at what they've done in free agency, you look at the trade that they just made. The Bucs are reloading. They're looking to win that division and go to the Super Bowl again, too. So, like, the likelihood of Ndamukong Suh coming back, I think that likelihood is very high.
I agree.
And Will Golston has been talking about since the end of last season how he wants to stay a Buc. He loves playing in Tampa. He would run through a brick wall for Todd Bowles. Like, everything says that he's going to come back on a reasonable deal.
Too.
Yeah,
reasonable, $5 million.
Exactly. Reasonable money that it works for him and it works for the Bucs. So then you kind of answer those questions on the defensive line. And I think that's a big thing. And again, they could go with a guy through the draft. Maybe obviously not in the first round, and not everyone loves the defensive line class in this year's draft. But I think those needs will get addressed. You can't. I love Nacho, but you can't go into the season with Vita Vea and Nacho.
And the thing is you're also probably going to lose Steve McClendon, right? I mean, who's 47, 49 now, something like that. I mean, he's as old as I am, I think. But
he's getting up there.
He's getting up there, yeah. So the thing is, I think you want some younger blood next to Vita Vea to kind of grow. They kind of swung and missed a little bit with Khalil Davis, who was kind of a twitchy, undersized guy, but it's kind of funny because we heard at the combine that they want that quick twitch pass rusher guy. That was Khalil Davis, right? And they let him go, and because he couldn't play the run. Okay, well, sometimes you need to stop the run to get to third downs, right? I mean, that's the thing. So in this defense, as much as they say they want that quick twitch guy, there's just not many of them in this draft. It's not a very deep defensive tackle draft at all, especially for the type of player the Buccaneers are looking for. Jonathan Stone with the $5 super chat. Thank you very much for all the super chats today, folks. Matt, he is ready to see some Shaq on Shaq violence come training camp.
I'm all for it. Then they got to get Shaquille O'Neal to come to training camp this year. If, if it's open up. I think Shaq had a house in Orlando, so it's not a crazy far drive to come to Tampa. And he was in Tampa last year for the Super Bowl too. But yeah, I mean, some of the best times at training camp are when you get the ones against the ones, and you do either the goal line stuff or obviously start at the 20 and go all the way down the field. That's the most fun type of things watching training camp. That and see which young players and rookies really progress and take it to the next level. But yeah, we'll get some. We'll probably see some Shaq on Shaq.
Yeah, you know what else is fun, Matt? March Madness is fun.
Oh yeah,
it just is. And that time is here, folks. March is here, and the madness has officially begun. It's time for you to shoot your shot, score big on the nonstop action with MyBookie. Predict the winners in each round of the MyBookie bracket contest for a chance to win a Bitcoin, a Doodle. And that's an NFT, by the way, currently valued at over $50,000 or over $100,000 more in cash prizes. So whether you're filling out multiple brackets, betting the national championship winner, or simply looking for those player and game props, MyBookie has you covered. Sign up today. Use the promo code Pewter to make your first deposit, earning a free entry into the My Bracket contest. Selections for the My Bracket contest will officially begin on March 13th. And they're going to close on March 17th. So you have until St. Patrick's Day at noon to set up your bracket and place your bets on MyBookie. Make sure you get your deposit in now using the promo code Pewter, and that will give you the free entry to the My Bracket contest. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Outside of football season, betting on March Madness is probably like the best betting portion of the year. So make sure you check that out because it's always so much fun. There's a billion games, different buzzer beaters. So it's fun. It's a fun time for if you're
the great thing about MyBookie. Like I usually go all in on college football and the NFL on MyBookie. I've been doing it for years. MyBookie has been a partner of ours on the Pewter Report podcast and on pewterreport.com for years. But it's just a great site to do that. And the off-season fun it just continues. Hockey, NBA, baseball's around the corner,
UFC.
Right?
If you're a UFC fan, you can bet on the fights. I always enjoy doing that.
Yep. So we kind of talked about the holes, and boy, they're getting filled quickly. Jason Light, Bruce Arians, Mike Greenberg, that front office, John Spytek, they're getting the players. Russell Gage, your number 3 wide receiver now. I think, Matt, you and I both agree they're going to add another wide receiver probably in the draft. Because you need 4. You got 3 now. Tyler Johnson, arrow pointing down right now, I think, from a stock standpoint. Same with Scotty Miller. Cyril Grayson, I thought, to your point, Matt, did a great job down the stretch. Games against Carolina and the Jets with that game winner. He's a player that maybe is that 4th guy, right? Maybe he can develop, but I think that there's really good receivers in this draft that could get a guy maybe late day 2 or day 3, add to the mix because when you have a wide receiver driven offense, you need plenty of weapons for Tom Brady. And they just kind of ran out of them. It was really Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski down the stretch in the playoffs without Godwin and AB. And this was a solid pickup for the Buccaneers. I like the addition of Russell Gage.
Yeah, it really is. It's an immediate upgrade, I think, is what's most important. And don't get me wrong, we all love Scotty Miller, but his biggest contribution last year was through special teams than anything else and anything that he did as a receiver. Same thing, everything you just said with Tyler Johnson. So it's exciting for Gage, especially the versatility that he can bring. He can line up inside. He can line up outside. Huge 3rd down guy, as I mentioned before. I think that's probably, for me personally, I think is most exciting. And he's used to playing with great players as well, too. Obviously, in Atlanta with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. Now he gets Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, maybe Rob Gronkowski, too. Nonetheless, a ton of weapons that he's used to playing around talented players. So, he doesn't always need to get fed the ball every single game to really have production and make an impact. So it's exciting what he can do in this offense, especially with Tom Brady.
Right. No, I totally agree. A couple of questions here real quick about O.J. Howard possibly coming back, right? I mean, he was he was becoming beast mode before the Achilles. He really was. He had a great rapport with Tom Brady in that 2020 training camp. And he got off to a really good start that season. Just was not the same player coming back from injury. And it just, you could see it from a mental standpoint. I think physically he was okay, but from a mental standpoint, just really struggled to kind of get back there. Atlas says, I'd be really surprised if we pick up a wide receiver this draft. I would not be surprised.
I really wouldn't be.
Keep in mind, Chris Godwin's coming back from a torn ACL and PCL. So that's a situation where
we don't even know if he's going to be ready for week 1.
I know.
I think a lot of us are assuming it, but that's certainly not a guarantee.
Right.
At
He,
all,
he might be healthy enough to play and come back, and I think he will. But sometimes your first year back is that recovery year, man. It's you getting back into the fold. I would not be shocked if Chris Godwin has less than 1,000 yards this season. And sometimes you can get back to playing in the first year back from injury. Then you get back to your old self in the second year. Not everyone is like Adrian Peterson that's going to come back from a torn ACL and rush for 2,000 yards as he did for Washington, a couple years ago. It just for the Vikings or whatever.
Yeah, he was still on the Vikings.
Right? Yeah, the Vikings. I think he got the 2,000 yards against Washington in that game. But yeah, so you're talking about an absolute freak at the position of Adrian Peterson. So we wish nothing but the best for Chris Godwin in terms of coming back. But I'm not going to hold it against Chris Godwin if he doesn't hit 1,000 yards. Not saying he can't. Not saying he won't. But it's not a lock. It's not a given, like you said, Matt, that he comes back and he's ready for training camp and ready for the start of the season, and he is back to being the Pro Bowl level Chris Godwin out of the gate.
Yeah, I think we're all just honestly, Adrian Peterson ruined it for anyone that's ever torn their ACL ever again, because everyone just immediately expects that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there's anyone that can do it, I think it would be Chris Godwin. Just his attitude, he's an absolute gamer. But the Bucs have to again exhaust all options. You can't just settle for one guy, Chris Godwin. Oh, he's going to be the Chris Godwin of old. That's not true. That's not guaranteed. And just to go back to the OJ Howard thing real quick, I really just think that both sides just need a fresh new start. I think OJ can
Ronald Jones, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was actually the other guy I was thinking of that I think can still be productive guys. It's just not in Tampa. I think in other places, but yeah, still a lot to get into for the Bucs in this offseason. So a lot more to see. And it's very exciting.
There really is, folks. You got to hang on because free agency is just getting started. Your Buccaneers, they're not rebuilding. They're rebooting. They're reloading is what they're doing. They're going after another Super Bowl run. They see the NFC South there for the taking again. They see the NFC possibly there for the taking again. If they can get over the Rams hurdle, and they will play the Rams in the regular season again.
Yeah, Scott, I actually want to bring that up. The schedule for them this year is quite tough, but I obviously still think that they can win the division. I felt that way even before Tom Brady came back, just because the NFC South is so bad.
Right.
But as you just mentioned, they played the Rams and they play the Packers this year.
Yeah.
So the Bucs, you never want a tough schedule, but the Bucs have a chance to control their own destiny and get that number 1 seed, because they're going to play the Rams, they're going to play the Packers, and obviously the goal is to win the division. So it's going to be an awesome season with a great chance to get that number 1 seed, because again, they have it right in front of them.
Yep. Speaking of awesome, Bucs fans, you're awesome. We appreciate all the super chats that have come in today. We appreciate you going to pewterreport.com/donation, giving us, call it the internet tip jar. If you like our content here on the Pewter Report podcast or on the website, pewterreport.com, we appreciate it. We appreciate all the support you guys give us. And we also appreciate you subscribing to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel. We're growing. We're on the way to 8,000 subscribers, Matt. So we're excited about that. Make sure you hit the like button on our videos. That helps the algorithm, helps more Buccaneer fans find us on YouTube. So stay tuned to pewterreport.com and our social media accounts on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. That's at Pewter Report for all the free agency news that is coming your way now, tonight, tomorrow, the rest of this week. Free agency is here, Matt. This is the NFL's version of March Madness. For Matt Matera, I'm Scott Reynolds. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.